leverage a legitimate criticism before I start my usual spiel. Do you realize how fake Halloween is? Everyone changes their names to include spooky in it and revel in celebrating it earlier than normal, but when was the last time any of you actually left your houses in Halloween time? No one puts their lights up or gets into extravagant costumes. All I see is an excuse to get hammered on a weekday and leave candy on your desk. And for all the shade you throw at people playing Christmas music in August, at least those people pull through on their promises. Step up your game, October. I can't have fun in September or November, so you're all I have. No, I'm not reading the comments on this video. What the fuck is a shape anyway? Because of the mask he wears? If I get called the beanie, I'm gonna sue someone. Myers was made around the time that the developers were still just little babies, but the interesting thing about this killer is that he is the peak of their old style of design. In fact, I would say that every killer has lived in his shadow since he released. Some motherfuckers still play him after almost 3 years. 3 years! I have scars I think about less than that. Who would do that anyway? Oh, you do. Well, hold on a second. So, you want to be good at Myers, but don't have the will or self-harm capacity to let survivors smash you over the skull. Don't worry, with this handy-dandy sarcastic explanation, you'll be a rank 1 in no time. So what does the evil within do anyway? Well, basically the same thing you're doing, except he gets paid for it. Staring. Myers gets to stare at survivors to increase his power level between 3 stages. The first is stage 1, where you have almost no chasing powers. You walk slow and swing your knife like it's carrying spices on it. The good thing about him is that your terror radius is almost nothing. And yes, gen grabbing Myers is a thing. Don't try it more than once, I don't care how bad the survivors are. If you keep trying it and failing, you look stupid, while if they keep falling for it, they're stupid. And our collective IQ can only take so much. Wait, you've got the purple mirror? The real goal here is to stalk people from up close. When you hold the power button, every survivor in your field of view glows white, charging up the meter in the bottom left till it's full. Now it triggered a loud sound cue, so everyone found out and they started running away. Okay, now you're at stage 2, where all the flavors are starting to get to know each other. Your swinging range is normal now, and your heartbeat goes up to 16 meters, and you move just as fast as the good killers. Now I think you might cry out, wait, that's just a regular killer with half the terror radius. You use this mode 90% of the time, it takes a good while to get to level 3, and you're only really gonna hit that once, maybe twice a game. So now your main goal is storing up enough bitterness for level 3, but slow down. If you try to ignore every chase in hopes of just powering up, you're gonna get slammed, because the only thing that's gonna give you the time to stalk survivors is dealing damage. Myers' main weakness is that once he's been spotted, you aren't going to get a lot of chances to get your stalk in. Meaning it's time to stab people, and I'm glad to say if you didn't catch them with your half-hearted terror radius, you can go fuck yourself, because that was your only tool, and you just blew it. Myers has to loop and chase like any other killer. You can stalk people while chasing them, it's just that they'll often duck behind cover to dodge your gaze. Michael also gets trench foot, so trying to stalk and chase at the same time would be like trying to go cross country in a fucking slip and slide. In most situations, I'd say just deal the damage and get your stalks in when they move to the next loop. This way you can kind of get the best of both worlds. There are some maps where stalking is a bit easier. The high-rise building in the farm, the gated windows of Crota's Pen Asylum, her front door, anywhere that provides you with a stealthy way to watch them. Just remember, the farther you are, the slower Myers' passion grows. Oh, this is the bit where we talk about snowballing, right? That's the thing everyone likes about Myers. I say that sarcastically, but they're not wrong. Suddenly turning into the biggest stabby boy, getting instant downs, vaulting stuff faster, and then using that knife's extra range to scrape off all that delicious fawns at the bottom of the pot is super strong. This is Myers' main gimmick. Getting to level 3 does require a lot more charge than level 2 did, just take note of the fact that you actually go back to level 2 when this timer runs out, instead of going back to level 1. And now I'm sick of the word level, so I'm gonna throw it in the trash. That said, don't just enter the mode whenever you can, have some goddamn civility. Since your power is tied to a meter, it's rational to just get your power to 99% and then unleash something 3 when you're right behind somebody. Hell, I don't know why you wouldn't do this. It's pretty scary to see Myers walking behind you knowing he spent the last 2 minutes inhaling Claudette's sweat, but if you change that to him pulling out his new posture while being on the top of the slip and slide, well, now you can call me less than enthused. And trust me when I say that failing to get a single hit with a level 3 Myers is one of the most embarrassing things a survivor can ever do to you.
Fucking virgin!
Especially since it plays the movie's theme when it triggers, and now that's an entire industry on its own. I read somewhere that at base you can reach this power at least 7 times in a game. There's a limit to how much you can stalk one survivor, just to make sure you're not grazing off the one AFK Dwight, because it's always the Dwight that goes to take a shit mid-match. Back to Evil Within 3 though, in some ways I'd argue that the extended range is more dangerous dangerous than the instant down, because it gives you so much more leverage during the loop-de-loop and pull, meaning you can power through pallets on a rainy day. But the reason people say snowballing, that's related to Myers getting to keep this up for a whole minute, which is to say that you should be very economic with how you spend your time here. It's even inadvisable to pick up your immediately stabbed and likely never to walk again victim, since you only have so much time as the Jolly Green Giant. Though if you're willing to cheat, you could have the mode last forever. All of Myers' add-ons are perfectly good in some way, shape, or form, except for like 3. That sounds snide, but I can look at entire catalogs of other killers that have outlandishly useless ones. Myers has a good economy, even the things on the food stamp aisles are helpful. The only useless one is maybe the sleazy memo, because that affects level 1 only, which you should ideally be trying to get out of as soon as possible. Everything else is reasonably positive, and you know the reason for that is probably because they didn't temper off the power with a bunch of negatives. Being the first licensed killer to come to the game, it'd probably be a downcast for sales if the player was stunned every time they got that music going. I get it, they gotta release some good shit so that you buy them. It's okay guys, they only really did this once. The best shit you can get at Dollar Tree is the stalking buffs. Anything that makes you do this faster is good. No, I don't want the fucking rewards card, leave me alone. I would be weary when an offering only works in level 1. Getting to see a survivor aura after a stalk is good and adds some nuance, but not when you're never going back to that stage after the first minute of the game. Increasing the length of Evil Within 3 is a pretty good go-to though. Now for my hot take, the red add-ons are perfect. Stalk enough people and get to instantly kill them when you're close? Heck yeah. Stay in stabby stabby fuck you I win mode for the rest of the game? Pog champ. Of course they're overpowered, that's why I love them. By the way, are you curious what happens to this Steve?
Figured.
I feel like your average Dead by Daylight match is torn between this organic narrative about horror and its ability to stay fun or competitive. Personally, the best moments of this game came from the players naturally making a narrative as the match plays out. The Evil Within power actually complements a scaling story between the survivors and the killer. Do you recall the first time you turned and just saw Myers staring at you? That's super creepy, and I'm not blonde or hot, so this is the closest I will get to experiencing this. So yes, the red add-on is perfectly fine and should not be touched for the sake of having a fun video game. Hold on, I get it. You don't buy what I say. I haven't played enough of this game to the point where my skin has shriveled, or where my food keeps getting uncooked because none of my housemates cleansed Hex Ruin in the kitchen. So let me grab an expert.
Who are you?
What's this doing? Why is it bad?
Oh, that lets you get an unfair mori against someone that hasn't ever been hooked yet. It hits the magic sweet spot of being bad for you and the
You gonna say something that isn't stupid?
Nah, I've just been stalking you.
Oh, Jesus! Before I open up his perks, we need to discuss a small concept, the obsession. The obsession was a mechanic that singles out a specific player whose face you really, really hate, and all it really means is that certain perks are affected to them and them alone. You heard my thoughts on Halloween. I hate ugly things that suddenly get embraced by everyone else, so... Oh god, it's looking at me. Yeah, I know this perk is really meta, but I fail to understand why. It's probably because people actually like to win games or something. Save the Best for Last gives you points when you hit someone that isn't your obsession. For each point, you reduce the cooldown of your attacks by 3% for a max number of... Please stop, I failed math. Kicker is, if you hit your obsession, you lose points, and when they inevitably DC, as obsessions always do, you can't get any more. The killer still keeps the tokens after they're gone, so one could finesse a bizarre situation where they have their meta and eat it too. Just slug your target and get another hit on someone else. Then there's play with your food, or as everyone else calls it, Pwiff. Not a fan, to be honest. This perk makes you faster every time you let your obsession escape a chase. And to its credit, if you get all 3 tokens, you are moving pretty quickly. The problem is that when you attack, you lose a token. Hit or miss, by the way. This could be incorporated into a meme build or placed on Wraith, but in my opinion, it's a pain in the ass to try and grind up these stacks while also losing them so easily. And to be honest, Pwiff just sounds like a grotesque bodily function. Yeah, I get shortening words makes things easier for others, but the same could be applied to your existence. Dying Light. I kind of forget what this does because the description reads like the Eye of Argon. Well, what you do need to know is that this thing's design used to be so brain-boggling that it got thrown out 3 times. At first, this perk would make the obsession heal faster, but the trade-off was that if you put them in the grave, everyone else on the map did everything 25% slower. Sounds reasonable until you realize this game's economy is fucked, and it's really easy to just bring a mori. This was also before you needed to get at least 1 hook, and what do you know, no one wanted to play games with this in it. Then they tried again, settling on a new perk that reduces survivor action speeds when you hook everyone that isn't the obsession. And then how the reindeer loved him. Now it's a reasonably good slowdown perk. The only problem is that with numbers perks like this, it's hard to tell how much value you're actually getting because you can't see what it's doing. Playing Myers actually somewhat weaned me onto the perk, even though I know I'll probably forget about it in a week. Speaking of making suggestions that fall on deaf ears, let's talk about the kind of perks you should put on him. So let's say you want to play the Shape, but his already meager heartbeat is just too loud. Well, you have a good selection of stealth perks to pick from, you greedy pig. There's the classic Monitor and Abuse, which reduces your heartbeat by 8 meters when not in a chase. And with it, Myers is about as quiet as my channel. Shut up, I will make that joke every time I feel like it. Consistency is what you get here, but there are some better perks. Let's call this Myers Easy Mode. It takes your heartbeat during everyday Myers time to only 8 meters. I'm sure you know how much that is, so imagine the length of 2 atoms laying on the ground. The second perk is Trails of Torment. This perk activates when you kick a generator, and it hides your heartbeat until either that gen stops regressing or you land a hit on someone, which makes it a match made in heaven for Myers Tier 3. I haven't been on the other end yet, but I imagine it's fucking terrifying to know that an instant downing machine is just wandering the halls. It is limited by a dumb and lame cooldown, but to be honest, everything has a cooldown at this point. And finally, we have Hard Mode with Furtive Chase. This perk is an interesting one because it actually barely works, he said in a video about giving advice. Furtive Chase, for those who don't know, reduces your heartbeat when you're in a chase. This is done by getting stacks. How do you get stacks? Hook the obsession, then watch the obsession status swap to the person that saves them. With all 4 stacks, you get 16 meters reduced, which is basically all of your terror radius when in Tier 2. The reason we call this hard mode is because it ruins a good amount of other better perks. Starting with the fact that you can't use any of Myers' personal effects with this because all of them ask you to not chase the obsession. Nor can you really run Monitor and Abuse because that perk increases your terror radius when you're chasing somebody, and do you see how smooth-brained this is? You could also infer that most seasoned survivors can just tell when a chase is going on, but you haven't liked or subscribed yet even though the buttons are right there, so what do you know about human nature? I can imagine the value if you are literally using nothing else to touch your heartbeat and then just work with the bare minimum. In fact, let's talk about every other recommendable perk like the person is running Furtive Chase. Don't worry, I'll play some Bill Nye after this so your 10-year-old mind can follow along. The new perk Blood Favor could be useful in Tier 2 because you can block off all the pallets and then use your free reign over that spot to stalk. Of course, that has to be paired with Undying lest you upset that perk's very specific sexual fantasies, meaning you're probably taking Ruin too if I can't convince you to do something else. If you're running Monitor and Abuse and therefore have to have sex with a toilet roll in lieu of a person, I would also tack on Infectious Fright. This perk makes everyone in your terror radius scream when you get it down. It's useful with Monitor because that actually makes you louder by 8 meters when you chase someone. Okay, back to imagining the vaguely specific perk is there. I would say that Hex Third Seal and Knockout could be nice if they weren't literally gamed by the system. There's no point in reducing your heartbeat as is, though there is a reason to hide your aura. It can be quite helpful to hide your appearance, and Knockout can be the push your precious Snow needs. In fact, I think you could value from things that boost space stats like Bamboozle and Fire Up, especially if you factor in the way that Myers jumps through windows when he has his knife out. I mean, okay, look, this isn't easy, alright? Myers is the most meme-buildable character since you can stretch so many things about him to their extremes. Vaults, terror radiuses, power duration, patience, the world is your oyster. I'm gonna slide into my closing thoughts, okay? For what it's worth, Myers is still one of the more interesting characters, and no, that's not because I spent an afternoon talking to someone who treats this character like the painting on the Sistine Chapel. I just say that because I like repeating myself for long periods of time. To be frank, I'd really enjoy it if the devs went back to this style of design. While it's really difficult to put into words what separates old killers from new, I think there is a weird Wild West style blood in this killer. Basically, go buy him if you're too much of a Hollywood bootlicker to get a killer with good perks like the Plague or Spirit. That's basically the end of the video, but hold on, I have things to plug. If you want to join my Discord, feel free to. I'm gonna open up some new moderation applications, so if you're looking to win my trust and then post porn of Adam Sandler fucking the hillbilly, well, you'll find I banned that word, so ha! You can also follow me on Twitter because I enjoy making jokes to myself and that makes me happy. Don't worry, if you thought that was a sellout request of me, wait till you see what I've got planned next week.